Welcome back, students. In the previous class we have discussed about diencephalon, midbrain, and in hindbrain we have discussed until pons varoli. So, after pons varoli, let me discuss the other parts of the hindbrain like cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Okay. So, this is pons of hindbrain. This one is medulla, and here this is cerebellum. Cerebellum. First, I would like to discuss about cerebellum. I have already discussed in the previous class, and I told you that cerebellum is the second largest part of a brain. Second largest part of brain after cerebrum, and cerebellum consists of highly convoluted surface. Why it is having many folds? Convoluted means folds. What is the reason behind having many folds? Means to provide the additional surface area for more number of neurons. That means it can able to accommodate many neurons because of its convoluted surface. Next, let me give you the complete picture of cerebellum. See, if you see the back view of our brain, back side view, this shows the cerebellum entire structure. These are two cerebellar hemispheres, two cerebellar lobes. Between cerebellar lobes, there is another lobe called vermis. So, this one is known as a vermis. This is one cerebellar lobe, this one is another cerebellar lobe. Within the cerebellum, same like cerebrum, it is also having outer grey matter and inner white matter. But inner white matter of this cerebellum shows some folded regions, and this inner white matter is looking like a tree, which is known as a tree of life. Common name, scientific name of this is arbor vitae. Arbor vitae is nothing but white matter, which is in the form of a tree, which is known as a tree of life. And each cerebellar, arbor vitae is also present this side, same cerebellar hemispheres are having this. And each cerebellar hemisphere can be divided into lobes. See, this is the anterior lobe, this one is the posterior lobe, this is the lateral lobe. This is anterior lobe, this one is posterior lobe, and this is lateral lobe. A lateral lobe is nothing but flocculus in general, we can say. So, this is the structure of a cerebellum and cerebellar hemisphere. What are the functions that are related to the cerebellum? Point number 1, cerebellum control, very very important point, and coordinate locomotor movements. See, movements of our hands, movements of our legs, our walking, and the movements of our jaws. Exactly, it is not, jaw movement is not locomotion, but the movement of leg, locomotion, is under the control. The voluntary muscular movements are controlled and coordinated by cerebellum. Second one, the cerebellum is known as a gyroscope of the body. Why it is known as gyroscope? Because it maintains equilibrium of the body. So, proper balance, I can say, of the body, balance of the body. If any damage occurs to the cerebellum, our movements are not proper. We'll perform uncoordinated movements. The uncoordinated movements that are observed in the persons who have undergone some damage to the cerebellum is said to be ataxia. Ataxia means uncoordinated movements. Uncoordinated movements due to the damage to the cerebellum. And one more thing, one more important function. Cerebellum also interprets the information, interprets the signals received by, very very important, semicircular canals of our ear, nothing but vestibular apparatus. So, it can interpret the signals received by the semicircular canals and auditory system So, semicircular canal signals are related to the balance, equilibrium of the body. So, these are the functions that are related to cerebellum. It is the second largest part, highly convoluted surface which can accommodate more neurons. It is having two hemispheres called cerebellar hemispheres. The white matter which is looking like a tree is called arbor vitae and connected by a central lobe called vermis. Each cerebellar hemisphere is having anterior lobe, posterior lobe and a lateral lobe which is also known as flocculus. Main functions of cerebellum: control and coordinate locomotion. It is acting like a gyroscope because maintains the equilibrium of the body. It also interprets the signals that are received by the vestibular apparatus, semicircular canals and auditory system. So, after cerebellum, the next part related to the hind brain is medulla oblongata, very very important. So, this is medulla oblongata. This medulla oblongata, it is the posterior most part of the brain. So, posterior most part. Medulla oblongata with the pia mater and blood capillaries, the roof of medulla oblongata with the pia mater and blood capillaries. Suppose if it is medulla oblongata roof, these are blood capillaries and this is pia mater forming a posterior choroid plexus. You know, anterior choroid plexus is formed by the roof of diencephalon with the blood capillaries and pia mater. This one is the posterior choroid plexus which is formed by the roof of medulla oblongata along with the blood capillaries and pia mater, posterior choroid plexus. This is roof of medulla and this one is pia mater and in between these are blood capillaries together forming posterior choroid plexus. Next, what are the functions of medulla oblongata? The functions that are related to the medulla oblongata, one by one. The first one, it can control the involuntary muscular contractions, very very important. Voluntary muscular contractions and movements under the control of cerebellum, but involuntary muscle contractions and the relative activities are under the control of medulla oblongata. Let me give you some involuntary muscular contracting activities one by one. The first one, you know, respiration is under the control of medulla oblongata, circulation under the control of medulla oblongata, flow of blood in blood vessels, flow of air in through the respiratory tract like a trachea, bronchi, bronchioles. This is under the control. You know, trachea walls are having smooth muscles, the blood vessel walls are having smooth muscles. Their contractions can cause the movement of blood and movement of air. So, those contractions under the control of medulla oblongata. Next, gastric secretions. So, secretions by alimentary canal. The wall of alimentary canal is having different glands. Stomach wall is having gastric glands, intestinal wall is having intestinal glands. So, these secretions are also under the control of medulla oblongata. So, respiratory, circulatory, gastric secretions under the control of medulla oblongata, and along with that the medulla oblongata also controls, it also controls having swallowing centers and it is having vomiting center. It also regulate mediate the activities like cough, sneeze, hiccups They are also under the control of medulla oblongata. Swallowing, vomiting, cough, sneezing and hiccups, these are also under the control of medulla oblongata. So, many involuntary activities are under the regulation of medulla oblongata. So, after this I want to tell you about a word called brain stem. So, what is brain stem? Brain stem is a part which is formed by both midbrain and hindbrain, but not all the parts of hindbrain. Let me tell you what are the parts of brain stem. And you know, brain stem connects brain with the spinal cord. Brain with the spinal cord. Let me show you what is brain stem and what are the parts of brain stem. The parts of brain stem. Midbrain is the part of brain stem. Pons is the part of brain stem. Medulla oblongata is also the part of brain stem. So, this is midbrain, this is pons, this one is medulla oblongata. I am not writing about cerebellum because cerebellum is not the part of brain stem. Midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata together called brain stem. This brain stem connects brain with the spinal cord. Medulla oblongata continues of spinal cord, but you know, until medulla oblongata, entire brain is protected by a bony case called cranium. That means cranium should have an aperture towards the posterior end to facilitate the extension of medulla oblongata out as a spinal cord. What is the name of that aperture? That aperture of a cranium, this is cranium which is made up of bones. You know, there are 8 bones that can form a cranium. Different bones like frontal bones, parietal bones, occipital bones, temporal bones, sphenoid, ethmoid. These are all the bones of cranium. Towards the posterior end of the cranium, there is an opening through which medulla oblongata comes out as a spinal cord. Name of that opening is foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is the aperture of cranium through which medulla comes out as a spinal cord. So, this is related to brain stem. Next, after brain stem, I want to discuss about the ventricles that are present in the brain. You know, inside brain, though brain seems to be like a solid tissue, inside the brain there are empty spaces where cerebrospinal fluid is present, which the cerebrospinal fluid can flow through these ventricles. So, let me discuss about those ventricles. There are 4 ventricles present in human brain. Let me discuss one by one. So, I am giving you vertical view of human brain, vertical view showing So, this is the picture showing the different ventricles of brain. This is cerebrum. Inside cerebrum, this is the space. The space or cavities that are present in 2 cerebellar hemispheres are known as first and second ventricles. They are also known as paraseals. These are 2 ventricles. And you know, first ventricle, second ventricle connected to the third ventricle that is present in the thalamus, that means diencephalon. So, this is third ventricle, which is also known as a diaceal, ventricle number 3, and first ventricle connected to the diaceal, second ventricle connected to the diaceal through an aperture, that means 2 apertures, separate openings. This one is one opening, this one is another opening. Those openings are known as foramen Monro. See, diencephalon, Diencephalon is the last part of the forebrain. Then there is midbrain here, and you know, through the midbrain there is a canal passes and connected to the hindbrain. Name of that canal is cerebral aqueduct. So, cerebral aqueduct is a canal that is connecting third ventricle to the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle is known as a myelocele, which is present in the medulla oblongata, and this fourth empty space or ventricle which is present in the medulla oblongata. You know, the medulla oblongata continues as spinal cord. That means the ventricle which is present in the medulla oblongata, known as fourth ventricle, also continues into the spinal cord as a canal. This is known as a central canal. So, like brain which is having empty spaces that is conducting the passage of cerebrospinal fluid, the spinal cord is also having a canal that can conduct the movement of cerebrospinal fluid, and this one is cerebrospinal fluid which is present and flowing through the ventricles. So, whatever the CSF that is produced in the first ventricle and second ventricle, that will flow into the third ventricle through the foramen Monro. From there it will flows into the fourth ventricle through the aorta, and from there it will enter into the central canal, and from there it will also enter into the subarachnoid space. Did you remember? I told you between the pia mater and arachnoid membrane there is a space or called space present known as subarachnoid space. Subarachnoid space consists of cerebrospinal fluid. From the fourth ventricle, the cerebrospinal fluid through different apertures, I do not want to mention all those, the apertures like foramen Megendi, foramen Luschka, that is different anatomical structure. I do not want to go into that much depth, but through those apertures the cerebrospinal fluid from the fourth ventricle will go to the subarachnoid space. From subarachnoid space it will go to the blood. So, from blood it is coming to the ventricles, and from the fourth ventricle it is going back to the subarachnoid to blood. So, that means what this cerebrospinal fluid is doing, why it is coming from the blood, why it is circulating through the different cavities of the brain and spinal cord, why it is going back to the blood. The only thing is, while it is coming, it will carry the nutrients to all these parts, while it is going back, it will take the nitrogenous waste from these parts to the blood. So, that is the main function. So, because of that reason I told you cerebrospinal fluid circulate 4 times a day, recycle 4 times a day. Okay, this is about ventricles of a brain. Brain stem. So, with this I would like to conclude the brain topic, which is the most important topic of CNS. Then next topic in CNS after brain is spinal cord. Before starting the spinal cord, important functions of different parts of brain, I want to synchronize once, listen carefully. Cerebrum is having sensory area, motor area, association area. The association area is related to the language and communication and intersensory association functions. And you know, cerebrum is having frontal lobe, thinking, reasoning, intelligence, memory, parietal lobe, language, occipital lobe. See, this is our eye, straight back to that is occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is having primary visual area, temporal lobe is having primary auditory area, which can interprets the signals that are coming from auditory nerve of organ of cortea for ear. And one more additional point I want to tell you, you know, our optic nerves which are straight actually from both the eyes will go back, but at the hypothalamus they can cross with each other. That crossing of optic nerves just beneath the diencephalon, particularly at the hypothalamus area, is said to be optic chiasma. So, actually optic chiasma has got much importance in the development of visual field. So, visual field I will discuss in eye topic. Next, after cerebrum, next one is olfactory lobes. Olfactory lobes are a pair of club shaped lobes that are responsible for sense of smell. Diencephalon, in the diencephalon, thalamus function is major coordinating center for sensory and motor signals. Hypothalamus, neurosecretory cells of hypothalamus secrete hormones. It can control the thirst, it can control the hunger, temperature, that means body temperature. Along with that, it is osmoregulatory, ANS regulatory, and also regulate the endocrine system because it is the master control center. Midbrain is having superior colliculi, inferior colliculi related to the sight and inferior colliculi related to the hearing. Through the midbrain, the canal that is passing is known as cerebral aqueduct. Midbrain is the part of brainstem. Midbrain is located between thalamus oblique hypothalamus and pons. So, after midbrain, next one is hindbrain. In hindbrain, pons is having pneumotaxic center, which can moderate the functions of respiratory rhythmic center and also can able to reduce the duration of inspiration and increases the rate of inspiration. After that, pons can act like a neural link. This term I want you to remember. It acts like a neural link because it is sending its fibrous tracts to different parts of the brain. Cerebellum is the gyroscope, maintains the balance. It can coordinate and control the locomotor movements. Medulla oblongata can regulate the involuntary muscular contractions. So, respiration under the control of medulla, circulation, movement of blood in the blood vessels under the control of medulla, secretions of different digestive glands under the control of medulla. It is having vomiting center, it can control hiccups, next cough or sneezing, etc., etc. So, this is about brain. Let me discuss the next part of the CNS, that is spinal cord. Spinal cord. See, brain is protected by a bony case called cranium. But spinal cord is also protected by a bony shield. That shield or the bony structure which is protecting the spinal cord is known as a vertebral column. The series of vertebrae forming a canal known as vertebral canal, also known as a neural canal. Through that neural canal, suppose if it is one vertebra, this canal is vertebral canal, this is spinal cord. Spinal cord passes through vertebral canal. So, this is one vertebra, this is another vertebra, and the canal formed by the vertebra is known as neural canal. Through the neural canal, spinal cord passes and spinal cord is protected because spinal cord is a sensitive tissue, soft tissue. Unless and until it is having protection, it will get damaged. So, that spinal cord is protected by a series of bones known as vertebral column. So, let us see the structure of spinal cord. Spinal cord is also protected by three meninges. Among those three meninges, one is dura mater, second one is arachnoid membrane, and third one is pia mater, outer to inner. It is also having same meninges like brain. And spinal cord is the extension of medulla oblongata from foramen magnum onwards. Okay, see, if this is brain, this one is medulla oblongata. After medulla oblongata, this is spinal cord. Our spinal cord is not straight, it is curved. So, this is our spinal cord. The spinal cord is protected by series of vertebrae. These are vertebrae that are protecting spinal cord. And the spinal cord is having curves like cervical curve, thoracic curve, lumbar curve, and sacral curve. And spinal cord is having swellings. The enlargement at the cervical region of the spinal cord is known as cervical enlargement. You know, from this particular area, the nerves will be sent to the upper limbs, hands. Next one more enlargement is known as lumbar enlargement. From the lumbar enlargement, the nerves, spinal nerves will be sent to the lower limbs. Next one, I would like to explain the TS of spinal cord in a clear way, because that is very much important to understand the reflex arc, which is a important topic in NEET syllabus. TS, listen carefully. So, this is spinal cord, means I am showing you TS this side like this. Listen all of you. TS of spinal cord I will explain, and some additional points are there. I will give you in a quick view. See, spinal cord extends until second lumbar vertebra as a cord. There it will have a swollen structure known as a conus medullaris, After that, it is extending to the next region as a thread known as a phylum terminale. The phylum terminale along with these are all some additional points, phylum terminale. Phylum terminale along with some spinal nerves branches, it is looking like the tail of a horse, hence it is called cauda equina. So, this is the external structure of spinal cord. Now, I want to explain the TS of spinal cord. So, this is the TS, and this TS listen, this is white matter and this one is gray matter. In brain, outer gray matter, inner white matter, but in spinal cord, outer white matter, inner gray matter, reverse. Next, see this extension which is towards posterior side. Posterior side means back side of spinal cord. If this is back side of spinal cord, this one is front side. This one is back side because I am showing like this, back, front, straight this one. So, this is known as posterior median sulcus, and this one is anterior median fissure. See, this sulcus and fissure can divide the spinal cord into two halves. It can divide it into two halves. Next one, there are arms to the gray matter. See, this is known as dorsal horn of gray matter. This one is called ventral horn of gray matter. Dorsal horn, ventral horn. Because of this dorsal horn's extension, dorsal horn extension and ventral horn extensions, the spinal cord white matter divided into different branches. This is called dorsal funiculus, which is white matter. This is called ventral funiculus, white matter. This one is lateral funiculus. This is one lateral, this is one lateral. Funiculi. So, this is the basic structure, and you know, at the center of a spinal cord there is a canal through which a cerebrospinal fluid passes. So, this is that central canal through which a cerebrospinal fluid passes, and central canal is the extension of a fourth ventricle of medulla oblongata. So, this is the TS of spinal cord. In the TS there is a posterior sulcus, anterior fissure, can divide the spinal cord into two halves, outer white matter, inner gray matter, and white matter is having myelinated nerve fibers. Yes, myelin white in color, and gray matter is having cell bodies and axons of non-myelinated. So, this one is non-myelinated and axons comma cell bodies, hence it is giving gray matter. Central canal is having CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. So, this is about TS of spinal cord. So, this TS of spinal cord will help us to understand the reflex actions which is there in the next topic. I will discuss about in detail description regarding the reflex arc and the reflex actions with the help of the spinal cord diagram. So, I would like to conclude the topic. In the next topic, I will discuss about reflex actions.